The restaurant was cozy and warm, filled with the soft hum of light jazz and dim enough to conceal secrets in every corner. Kathy sat by the window, her fingers nervously tracing the rim of her wine glass. Across from her, Roger, her new friend, or perhaps something more, wore a casual, confident grin that made her heart race. Tonight, he had brought her to this quiet, hidden spot in the city, where the risk of running into someone who might recognize her felt minimal, or so she believed. Kathy had gone the extra mile with her makeup, double-checking every detail before their meeting because she understood the impact of looking flawless. When Roger excused himself to use the restroom, she fixed a stray hair and patted her lips to ensure her lipstick was intact. But as the minutes passed, a thought crept into her mind. Roger was taking a little too long. She tried to dismiss it as nerves, yet a slight chill ran down her spine that she couldn't shake off. Her phone buzzed softly, breaking her from her thoughts. She glanced down and felt her heart skip a beat. Ben, her husband, was calling. The unexpected call took her by surprise, especially since he was supposed to be at work. Clearing her throat, Kathy lifted the phone and answered in her sweetest tone. "Yes, honey?" Ben's voice was calm but carried an edge she couldn't quite identify. "Where are you right now?" A bead of sweat formed at her temple, and she quickly laughed it off. "I'm on a date. Just kidding," she replied, trying to sound playful. "I'm just catching up with some friends from the conservatory, honey." There was a brief silence before he replied. "Unfortunately, it's not a joke. Turn around." The words echoed in her ears, sharp and clear. She froze, her heart pounding, and slowly turned her head. There, in the dim light of the restaurant, at a table in the corner, was Ben. He gave her a slow wave, his expression unreadable. Her throat went dry as she took a shaky breath, gripping her phone tightly. "Ben, why are you here? Why aren't you at work?" Ben's tone remained calm. "Change of plans. I thought I'd grab a quick bite, but imagine my surprise when I saw my own wife sitting here with some guy, looking a little too cozy." His voice was steady, but his words hit Kathy like a punch. Her pulse quickened as she scrambled for an excuse. "Wait, what? You're misunderstanding. You think I'm on a date? What about you? You're sitting with that pretty woman over there." Ben chuckled softly. "That's Maria, Kathy, my lawyer." Kathy's heart plummeted, leaving her grasping for words. She refused to let Ben or his lawyer get the best of her. Taking a steadying breath, she straightened her shoulders and, with a hint of a smile, made her way over to their table. The sound of her heels clicked softly on the floor as she approached, and she took her seat next to them, summoning all the calm she could muster. "Well, hello there," she said politely, giving Maria a small nod. "Maria, right?" Maria nodded back, looking composed, though her gaze was sharp and steady. Kathy wasted no time. She turned to Ben, her voice sweet but edged with challenge. "Honey, I have to ask, what's going on here? Why are you having dinner with a lawyer? Did something happen that you haven't told me about?" Ben looked at her, a small, unreadable smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Well, Kathy," he said slowly, "I suppose you could say I'm in a rather unpleasant situation. It's kind of embarrassing, really." He leaned back, looking between her and Maria, shaking his head. "I never thought I'd be here, sitting with my lawyer, but here I am. You know, I just hope I'm not getting fitted for reindeer antlers this Christmas." His voice remained calm, but his eyes were hard. Kathy felt her cheeks flush, but forced herself to smile, keeping her tone light. "That sounds awful, honey," Kathy replied, turning to Maria with a small laugh. "What do you think, Maria? Imagine that your husband, who says he works the night shift, is actually secretly spying on you. A little paranoid, don't you think?" Maria's smile was smooth, her eyes giving nothing away. "Oh, trust me, life has a way of surprising us, which is why I'm here to help couples through times like these." Kathy let out a soft chuckle, though her heart raced. "So, a divorce lawyer, huh? Well, Ben, I'd hate to see you jump to conclusions. It's just dinner with an old friend, you know." She looked back at Ben, the smile never leaving her face. "A little impulsive of you, don't you think?" Ben took a long, slow sip from his glass, his eyes steady on Kathy. When he set it down, he gave her a calm, almost amused smile. "Kathy, you know I'm a calm, rational man. I don't make decisions on a whim. I prefer to think with a clear head." He leaned forward, his gaze piercing. "So why don't you go ahead and tell us about Roger? Is he a friend? Or maybe something more?" Kathy didn't miss a beat, her own smile steady. "Ben, please, I've told you already. Roger is a friend from the conservatory." He's a brilliant pianist. She shrugged, keeping her tone light. We just happened to meet up tonight in this beautiful place to talk about music. You know how creative people like us, musicians, artists, tend to be a little more expressive. But that's all it is. Ben raised an eyebrow and let out a small chuckle. I suppose I should hope his hands stay on the piano keys, right? Kathy laughed, waving her hand. Maria, you might want to note how your client here loves to provoke. Honestly, Ben, that innuendo is pretty bold. Maria simply shrugged, watching the exchange closely, but without much reaction. Ben's expression turned more serious, though a slight smile remained. So, Kathy, he said, his voice calm but firm. You're telling us that you and Roger are just friends? No intimate involvement? Kathy looked from Ben to Maria and back to Ben, a playful glint in her eye. Ben, we're just friends, pure and simple. Unless, of course, Maria here considers a love of music a reason to file a suit for infidelity. She laughed, glancing at Maria, who chuckled and shook her head. Oh, I wouldn't go that far, Kathy, Maria said, smiling. I think I can handle the situation without getting too dramatic. Ben smirked, clearly amused. This whole scene struck him as almost funny. Her quick defenses, her breezy responses. All right, honey, but you know I'd love to hear what Roger thinks of your friendly relationship. He leaned back, crossing his arms. It would be interesting to get his take on things. Kathy kept her chin up, her voice steady. Of course, Ben, she replied. Once Roger's back, I'm sure he'll back me up. Not sure why he's taking so long, though. She forced a little smile, though her fingers tightened around her glass. Ben leaned back in his chair, pulling out his phone and tapping the screen. Kathy, we actually don't need Roger here. He might show up eventually, but I thought you'd prefer to hear what we have to say right now. He lifted his phone slightly, his expression unreadable. It turned out that Ben had gone into the restroom with Roger, and they had a man-to-man conversation. With a tap, a recording began to play. Kathy and Maria exchanged quick glances, both bracing themselves for what was about to unfold. First, Ben's voice came through. Hey, man, is that cute redhead over there your friend? Roger's laugh was easygoing, a little too comfortable. You could say that, he replied. But what's it to you? Ben played along, keeping his voice light. I've just always been amazed at how easy some guys make it look to pick up women. Maybe you could give me some tips, huh? It doesn't come as naturally to me. Roger's laugh was low and smug. Oh man, I don't know if you can teach it. Some of us just have it, you know? Ben's voice then shifted to a more playful tone, but still pressing. Hey, so tell me, people say redheads are the hottest in bed. Is that true? You get anywhere with her? Roger didn't hesitate. He laughed, sounding almost proud. Oh, they're wild, all right? That one, man. She does things. Let's just say if I'm not careful, she might break me. She bounces like crazy. There was a moment of silence in the recording before Ben responded. Wow, lucky you. Roger chuckled again, sounding pleased with himself. Lucky? I'd say so. Just hoping she doesn't wear me out tonight. You know what I mean. Ben then thanked Roger for the conversation and wished him luck. Ben emerged from the restroom first, deliberately propping the door handle so Roger couldn't get out for a while. A little lesson for Roger to linger a bit longer. The recording ended, and the restaurant's background hum filled the sudden silence at their table. Kathy's cheeks flushed, her fingers curling tightly around her glass, but she quickly forced herself to sit up straighter, clearing her throat as she struggled to keep her expression composed. Maria's gaze was sharp, her lawyerly instincts taking in every reaction, while Ben watched Kathy with an amused, expectant look. Kathy forced a smile, though her voice wavered. Well, Ben, she began, trying to maintain her calm. I think Roger was just, showing off. Men say all kinds of things when they think they're bonding with each other. He's clearly just joking around. Ben raised an eyebrow, a slight smile curling at his lips. Joking? Huh? Sounds pretty detailed for a joke. But I'm all ears, Kathy. Go ahead, explain away. Kathy straightened up, forcing a small laugh despite her flushed face. Ben, really, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Roger is just a braggart. He loves to joke around and exaggerate. Honestly, the guy's got a wild imagination. He probably thought he was just being funny. She turned to Maria, hoping for an ally. Maria, can we really consider the wild claims of a guy who talks like an idiot as proof of anything? That's ridiculous. People say all kinds of things. Maria's expression didn't soften. She gave Kathy a tight-lipped smile, looking mildly entertained. I think I've seen enough for one night, Kathy. This isn't my usual kind of event, but I have to thank Ben for inviting me. It was eye-opening, she said with a nod toward Ben. Kathy's face grew tense, but before she could respond, she saw Roger standing and scanning the tables, looking frazzled and confused. Ben gave a polite smile. Looks like your friend is back, Kathy. I think he's looking for you. Kathy called out to him, and Roger rushed over, clearly frustrated, without even noticing Ben and Maria. Kathy, you won't believe it. Some idiot propped the restroom door shut. Had me stuck in there forever. He glanced around and then narrowed his eyes at Ben. It was you, wasn't it? Are you nuts? Ben merely raised an eyebrow, smiling, while Kathy gave Roger a pleading look. Roger, let me introduce you. This is Ben, my husband. Why don't you explain to him that you're just... But she never finished. Roger's face went pale as he finally put the pieces together, his expression turning to sheer panic. Oh, crap, he stammered, eyes wide. I think I just heard my phone ringing. Better go check on that. He gave a clumsy nod, then practically bolted to his table, snatching his things before darting out of the restaurant without looking back. Kathy stared after him, speechless, her face a mixture of shock and anger. Ben chuckled softly, shaking his head. Kathy, looks like Roger may be a decent lover, but he's a pretty unreliable friend. Seems he's not willing to stand by you in a tough spot. He glanced at Maria, then back to Kathy. Anyway, it's about time to settle up and head out, don't you think? Maria remarked as she rose from her chair, nodding in agreement while gathering her belongings. Ben gave Kathy one last glance and added with a half smile, Oh, and honey, you'll be covering dinner with Roger out of your own pocket? Kathy's jaw tightened, but she forced herself to nod. She called over the waiter, pulling out her card and trying to maintain as much composure as possible. However, when the waiter swiped it, he frowned and shook his head. Sorry, ma'am, it's not working. Just then, Ben and Maria walked by on their way out. Kathy turned to Ben, her voice tense. Ben, my card isn't working. Did you do this? Are you really going to leave me here like this? Ben shrugged, glancing back with a feigned sympathetic smile. I didn't think it would be an issue, Kathy. I figured your friend would handle it. Damn it, Ben. Kathy hissed, her voice barely controlled. You're actually going to leave me here without any money? Ben's smile widened slightly. Come on, Kathy. You're a resourceful woman. I'm sure you'll figure something out. With that, he turned and walked out, Maria at his side. As they exited, Maria shot a glance at Kathy. Ben, I'll have the papers finalized by tomorrow morning, Maria said. Ben nodded, relieved. Thank you, he replied, letting out a breath as he prepared to go home while Kathy remained behind in the restaurant, left to face the bill and the fallout from the evening. When Ben arrived home, the weight of the day settled heavily on him. He moved through the house slowly, taking his time to toss a few essentials into a suitcase. Today had proven more challenging than he'd anticipated, and although he felt the urge to pack up everything tonight, he decided it could wait until tomorrow. A few days at his brother's place sounded like just what he needed. Barely an hour later, the front door swung open, and Kathy stormed in, her eyes flashing with frustration. She set her purse down with a thud and made her way toward him. Ben, what was that all about? She fumed. You had to make a cheap show out of everything, dragging your lawyer along and setting me up like that. Do you have any idea how humiliating it was? She threw her hands up, her words spilling out. And to leave me there without any way to pay? They were about to make me wash dishes or clean toilets. That's what they told me. Thank God my friend Angie came to help me out. Ben let out a tense, stressed laugh. More a reaction to his nerves than anything funny. It was a habit of his to laugh in stressful moments, but this time it seemed to hit Kathy the wrong way. What's so funny? She demanded. Ben raised a hand, trying to keep his voice even. Kathy, he began slowly. What instrument do you play? Kathy blinked, thrown off by the odd question. What? What does that have to do with anything? You know I play the flute, Ben. He looked at her, his smile twisting with a bitter edge. Then maybe you should go find your lover and play his skin flute. He gave a mocking bow, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Might suit you better. And please, leave me alone. Kathy's face reddened, her fists clenching at her sides. Ben, damn you. Are you serious? You bring that woman, your lawyer, to humiliate me, and now this? Do you want a divorce? You're just going to throw it all away because of some silly thing Roger said? You're so petty. Ben felt a sharp pang in his chest. Kathy, he said softly, I did love you once, and maybe you loved me too. We were a great couple, but he shook his head. Now it's clear this means nothing to you. So yeah, I want a divorce because my wife apparently wants to ride piano players. The words struck hard, and Kathy's face contorted with anger. Without another word, she grabbed her purse and hurled it across the room, aiming right for him. Go to hell, Ben. Stop insulting me. I don't deserve this, she yelled, her voice cracking. Ben's face tightened as his patience finally snapped. He picked up his sports bag, slung it over his shoulder, and looked back at her one last time. With a curt, polite bow, he turned and left the house without saying another word. The next morning, Kathy opened the door to find Maria standing there, a thick stack of papers in hand. Kathy's expression hardened as Maria held out the documents in silence. Without a word, Kathy snatched them up, her jaw clenched. Maria's calm, unbothered demeanor only fueled Kathy's determination. She didn't like to lose, ever. She considered herself smart and clever enough to navigate whatever Ben threw her way. As soon as Maria left, Kathy got to work. By that afternoon, she had already hired a well-regarded lawyer and started preparing her case. Her strategy was clear: portray Ben as a jealous, overreacting husband. After all, she thought, he had only caught her having dinner with Roger, a friend and fellow musician. Maybe Ben had let his jealousy get out of hand. But as she mulled it over, a chill crept down her spine. How had Ben known about her meeting with Roger? She had been so careful, hadn't she? Kathy racked her brain, trying to remember if she had let anything slip, but came up empty. Pushing the thought aside, she felt confident that she could make this whole mess disappear in court. Finally, the day of the trial arrived. Kathy sat at the defendant's table, cool and collected. She and her lawyer had crafted a strong argument. Ben would be painted as a paranoid husband who had taken things too far. However, as the proceedings unfolded, her confidence began to falter. Ben's lawyer stepped forward with something Kathy hadn't anticipated: hard evidence. There were printed screenshots from Kathy's own phone, messages between her and Roger that went far beyond friendly chat. Her face flushed, and she hissed under her breath, "Damn it, Ben. You went through my phone. That's a complete violation of privacy." But it didn't stop there. Ben had one more ace up his sleeve: a witness. He called their neighbor, a retired man who lived across the street, to testify that he had seen Roger coming to the house one evening while Ben was working the night shift. Kathy's lawyer attempted to discredit the witness, but the damage was done. Ben's case was rock solid, and Kathy's defense unraveled. By the end of the trial, the verdict was clear: Ben had won. Afterward, Kathy managed to catch up to him in the courthouse hallway. She stepped in front of him, her voice softer than it had been in weeks. "Ben, please, can we talk? Maybe we don't have to end things like this. I made mistakes, but we had something special. Isn't there any way we could try again?" But Ben's expression remained cold, untouched by her plea. "Please, Kathy, you didn't just make mistakes. You lied. Even now, standing here, you're trying to twist things," he said, shaking his head. "I loved you, but betrayal is something I can't forgive." Kathy's face fell as she watched him turn and walk away, leaving her to confront the full weight of her choices. The game she had tried to play had come back to haunt her, and now there was nothing left to do but live with the consequences. 3 months after the trial, the finality of Kathy's situation set in. The divorce had been quick and unyielding, a stark reminder of how drastically her life had changed. Ben had been resolute, and Kathy found herself navigating a world that felt increasingly hostile. At first, she tried to maintain her composure, believing that she could still piece her life back together. But the reality of her dwindling savings and mounting bills soon crushed that hope. She lost her job at the music school, the director citing unprofessional behavior following the scandal. Without a steady income, she struggled to keep up with her mortgage payments. The house that had once felt like a sanctuary transformed into a prison of debt, each missed payment echoing in her mind. As the eviction notice arrived, Kathy stood in the living room, surrounded by boxes filled with her past. The walls felt like they were closing in, reminders of a life that no longer belonged to her. Friends who had once supported her began to distance themselves, some whispering behind closed doors about her fall from grace, while others simply didn't know how to react. With nowhere to go, Kathy sought refuge with a distant relative who reluctantly took her in. Living in cramped quarters only deepened her sense of isolation and shame. As she lay awake at night, the weight of her choices pressed down harder. The regret was suffocating, and she often thought back to the life she had with Ben, what it had felt like to be loved and secure. In her darkest moments, Kathy realized that she had lost more than just her job and her home. She had lost the man she had once vowed to cherish. The betrayal she had thought she could brush aside had not only cost her a marriage, but had also stripped away her identity. Now, she was left to confront a future that seemed bleak and uncertain, with the echoes of her past haunting her every step. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.